about the message that feel that the app is delivering to people within the United States. But we should also remember that the app has 170 million users who are accessing TikTok because that is where they like to engage and share information, create art, receive their news, and basically just talk to each other and share information about their lives. And so any restriction on the delivery of TikTok within the United States would raise free expression concerns, not just for TikTok, but also for those 170 million users in the United States, changing the speech in which they would engage. And that, to me, means that there are First Amendment issues with requiring the divestiture of TikTok.
I guess the question many people have conceptually is how to balance this with national security fears that many have expressed. One of the agency commissioners in government has called TikTok a very sophisticated surveillance app, and the director of national intelligence has testified that China is developing frameworks for collecting foreign data. Is it an issue of trying to balance different interests?
Any law is, generally speaking, about attempting to balance different interests. In this particular circumstance, many of the concerns that have been raised with TikTok's data collection and usage policies are similar to other concerns that have been raised about data collection and usage policies at many other platforms, whether U.S.-based or foreign-based. And so we can approach that in a different way. We can approach that in a way that protects everybody from unwarranted surveillance online by passing comprehensive consumer privacy legislation. And luckily, Congress is moving that forward right now too with something called the American Privacy Rights Act. We should be focusing on that and moving that forward and getting that to the best place that is most protective of everybody's privacy online, from every single company and from every single country.
We've been talking to Kate Ruan, director of the Free Expression Project at the Center for Democracy and Technology. Kate, thanks so much.
Thank you, Scott.
The video game industry is a multi-billion-dollar business worth more than the music and film industries combined.
We're seeing some games that are really taking, $500 million to make.
New business models and technological innovations have fueled a surge in gaming. But a turbulent labor market has also revealed cracks in an industry that once seemed unstoppable. I'm Waylon Wong, one of the hosts of NPR's daily economics podcast, The Indicator. Tap your screen now for a brand new series all about the economics of video games.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken is headed to China this week. His trip follows a visit by Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen earlier this month, where she took time to flag a growing concern over capacity in Chinese manufacturing. She says it could hurt American businesses and workers. But as NPR's John Ruich reports from the Chinese city of Hubei, some in China don't see it that way.
At Sungrow Power Supply, a company officer gives a cheerful tour to a group of reporters brought to the factory as part of a government-organized press tour. The company is known for its photovoltaic inverters, which make the power from solar panels usable.
What we displayed here are 3 to 25 kilowatts residential products.
The solar industry is a poster child for Chinese overcapacity catalyzed by government support. China controls more than 80% of global solar manufacturing, but despite a growing market worldwide, the amount of gear that China exports outstrips the ability of countries to install it. Prices have fallen. This is just the kind of thing that's prompted complaints from the US and Europe and has the potential to damage relations. At Sungrow, though, nobody seems to see it as a problem. According to a Sungrow executive, overcapacity is just something that happens as industries develop. The best way to overcome it, he says, is through innovation. For its part, China's central government has at times acknowledged that overcapacity is a problem. but at others, it's pushed back against accusations that it's flooding the market with cheap goods. The trade minister recently argued that China's industries are dominant simply because of innovation and robust supply chains. In Hefei, local officials who are incentivized to grow the economy are quick to brush off questions about overcapacity and trumpet their achievements instead.
The total number of high-tech enterprises in Anhui has exceeded 19,000, ranking the 8th in China. And the number of tech-based SMEs.
So I often get the impression that there's this hope that if we just invest in enough technology, something will happen that will solve our imbalance problems.
That's Michael Pettis, a professor of finance at the Guanghua School of Management at Peking University. He's talking about imbalances in the Chinese economy. It's been propelled for years by investment in things like real estate, infrastructure, and manufacturing. But despite a long-standing recognition that consumption needs to rise, it hasn't happened.
They cannot increase investment in the property sector. They don't want to increase investment in infrastructure. They're finding it very difficult for consumption to go up.
According to Pettis, the government is stuck now.
So they have to choose between continuing on this path or allowing GDP growth to slow a lot.
Beijing denies that it overly subsidizes industry, but Pettis points to a range of benefits that give Chinese companies a leg up and are effectively types of subsidies, including targeted lending, tax breaks, and a ban on independent labor unions. Back in Hefei, we visit a new factory that's a partnership between a leading battery maker called Gotion and German car maker Volkswagen.
The incoming aluminium for the cathode. Hence, we apply then on that aluminium foil here.
Like solar and EVs, the battery sector suffers from excess capacity in China, according to experts. The country makes more than it can use, but that's not stopping this venture. A German executive on secondment from Volkswagen explains.
Today we have around about 3,000 cells a day, and the final will be up to 80,000.
The company seems to recognize concerns abroad about Chinese exports. It's said it will locate 1/3 of its manufacturing overseas by next year, but there have been snags. The company plans to build a factory in Michigan with huge tax breaks and other subsidies, but it's in limbo after a local backlash. Pettis, the Beijing-based economist, says on a macro level, encouraging and subsidizing more manufacturing capacity is well and good if it can be absorbed.
But when you're already 1/3 of global manufacturing, for China to do that, the rest of the world has to accommodate it.
And many are signaling that won't happen without a fight. John Ruich, NPR News, Hefei, China.
Volkswagen assembly workers in Chattanooga, Tennessee made history over the weekend by voting to join the United Auto Workers. The vote defies decades of union failures in the South. Stephen Bisaha of the Gulf States Newsroom reports on why this is such a big deal in the South and what's next for the union.
Here are two things you need to know about this Volkswagen plant. First, it's huge. The plant pumped out around 175,000 SUVs last year and employs about 5,000 workers. And second, workers already voted against unionizing here twice, which is why people like Daniel Duncan were skeptical it could actually happen.
Well, I've been held a union card since 1973. I know don't get yourself too high until the actual vote comes in.
Duncan does not work at the plant. He's a new transplant in Chattanooga. He's come to the Union Watch Party because he understood it could make history. That's because there's been a wave of union campaigns in the South over the last 10 years. Nissan in Mississippi, Amazon in Alabama, at this Chattanooga plant twice. They all ended in loss after loss.
I've done this off and on for 51 years. You don't start smiling till it's done.
There's a smile creeping on your face as you say that.
There's a little bit of a smile right now.
And while there were smiles at this watch party, Tennessee Governor Bill Lee called the vote a mistake after 2 days of silence. Lee had openly campaigned against the union, warning it could cost Tennessee jobs. Now, there is a third thing to know about this plant. Out of over 100 Volkswagen plants in the world, this was the only one without worker representation. It's why Darius Dabrowski came from Germany to this party. He's part of Volkswagen's Work Council, which represents workers in Volkswagen's boardroom.
Volkswagen Kultur entwickelt. So for basically forever, I mean 40, 50 years, you can call it forever, we've developed this Volkswagen culture.
a Volkswagen culture that works closely with labor groups. And this one plant in the South was the exception. As the night went on, more and more yes